You are now listening to About That Business, hosted by Rom Wills. Rom Wills is an entrepreneur and personal coach who has helped people reach their fullest potential personally and professionally. Take it away, Rom.
Thank you, Marshall. A community of consumers. And this won't be the usual stuff about, certain groups of people being consumers, and making that a bad thing. This is just a business thing. And this is something I talked about before, but really want to emphasize it again, especially for a business. There's some people out there, when they create a business, they're not really thinking about the demographics of their customers or really what they're doing for them. They have this misguided belief that they're just some individuals or something out there providing a business service. Usually those businesses don't make it. Any business you create, you got to think about the community of people who support it. Now, I discovered this early on when I published my book, Nice Guys and Players. One of the reasons that it sold so well and I made so much money when I initially came out with it, because unbeknownst to me, I had tapped into that whole PUA community. Even though I'm definitely not a PUA or really go with most of the tenants, people in that community were buying the book and they were telling other people. So basically, I was selling the book without doing anything because it was word of mouth. And, in my previous video, I talked about selling organic products. Now, I've seen in the black community anyway, I've observed a lot of products being sold at hair shows. And I mentioned that many black women are competing, creating natural products. But they have a community of women, especially. And some men, because some of these women are making beard butters and stuff for men as well. You have a community already of people who are buying it. See, any product you have to have a community. You know what? If you're a goth, right? If you're a goth, you have to have a community of people to support it. Like this store that you see in at least most of the malls I've seen always have like a Hot Topic. And it sells a lot of stuff that appeals to goths. There's a community there. If you have a gym, there has to be a community of people that support it. And I remember a gym manager mentioned that. She said, this is a community right here. And it is. So whenever I go into a business or anything, it's a community. That's the key. Like when you creating something, the best way to do it is create a community of people who are supporting it. Like if you have like a barbershop, that's a good example. Barbershops are really communities. When you have a barbershop where people coming in and out and they know each other, they see each other, they're talking, that's actually a community. Like a very good barber, the smartest thing they would do at a barbershop is actually keep a conversation going about any topic. Not just with their customer, whoever's in the chair, but with each other, people sitting. And that actually creates a sticky where people will come back. That's the most important thing. I actually learned that the whole point of a sticky from my ex-wife, because she used to be an editor at AOL back when it was hot. So it's like, you got to create a community of people who are going to support your product, who are going to come in. Even if it's a food product, it's still a community, or a grocery store or something, restaurant. You have a community of people. For those who might remember that TV show Cheers, about, it had Ted Danson and Shelley Long in it, and it had, Kirstie Alley later on. That bar was a community. And in any community, you have certain hierarchy. And in fact, the community thing, that ties into sociology. I remember reading a book, I believe it was by Elijah Anderson. He's a sociologist. I believe it was his book. I might be wrong. It's not right in front of me, but he was talking about a community just on a corner. in just a neighborhood. And, and it's something I've always paid attention to. Like, for example, I remember when I was in living and working in D.C., and there was a book stand that I always stopped by to talk to one of the workers there. And his name was Steve. May he rest in peace. He's transitioned years ago. But it was interesting. Even though he didn't own the book stand, he was just a worker there. People called the place Steve's because he kind of dominated. But there was kind of like a little community that kind of grew up around it. Like everybody knew it. And that community included, the book stand and then several vendors who worked outside, people who would come in and out. And it was an interesting thing. Just from a sociological point of view, it was interesting to look at. But that community kept that business going. Right? Like any business, and that's the thing to think about, as best as possible. If you're a service business, you're going into people's homes or something, that's tough. But if you were to have like a cafe is a great example. You can actually create a community around that. A bookstore, you can create it around that. I remember in DC, it was a bookstore, it's called Caravan Books. And I'm not sure how much money dude actually made from it. I didn't see a lot of people buying books, but it was a community. People came in there and they would just sit there and talk with the owner. He would drop knowledge on them. And I always said when I, air quote, retire, I'll have a bookstore. And I can envision like a community of people, some old guys, young guys coming in there. That's important. I mean, that's what it is on YouTube. Many people's channels are more than just somebody talking about whatever. They're communities. It's a community of people. There's a social hierarchy and everything. But for business, as best as possible, you want to create a community. As best as possible. Like I said, like some service businesses, you really can't do that. Like if you, a plumber or a massage therapist, since I like using that a lot. You can't really create one. But if it's like a store or like an online community, something like that, a website, that'd be smart. Like a website, it might be a good idea no matter what, like create a forum of people who are like fans of your stuff or whatever. Or to have a fan club, something like that. It depends. Like I said, it's one of those things, you want to do it as best as possible, but always keep that in mind. Now, another thing as far as community, not just creating it, but, I used an early example of, black women selling natural products to primarily other black women. You want to see, if you're selling a product or you create a service, okay, who are the people or community of people who are going to buy this product? What's the demographic? And this is very important. I mean, major corporations pay thousands, maybe even millions to know this information. And it's deep. People don't realize how deep. Like they pay this there's like stuff, and it's not really public knowledge, where they will pay money just to know the demographics of a particular neighborhood and also know the buying habits of a particular neighborhood, which is a community. Then they know where to place stuff. Where corporations, they'll pay for this information. They'll say, okay, we got people around here who buy a lot of shea butter. All of a sudden, the corporation knows, okay, we can put a business around there. Or if we have existing businesses like grocery stores or drugstores, it's like, okay, let's increase. If we don't have our stuff in those stores already, let's talk to these corporations, see if we can get our stuff in there and get them featured prominently. It's a deep thing. Or books. If like people in a certain area will buy a certain type of books, that's what you'll have in that area. Like say if you got an area, like I've seen that in the book industry with like large book chains who have a large section of black books. Somebody done figured that out. Somebody say, oh, let's have a larger than average section because that's what it is. They figured out the community. So anyway, as always think about these things. Always look at every little thing. Many people start a business without thinking about who's going to actually buy their products, or the community of people who's going to buy their products or use their services. But that's a very important thing. So anyway, that's it for today. Let's go make that money.